This act plunges into the illegal engineering of the Aichi M6A Seiron, a machine designed to survive the crushing pressures of the deep sea while maintaining the performance of a frontline strike fighter. We begin with the pressurized hangar challenge. While other nations tried and failed to put small, flimsy scouts on submarines, Japan demanded a full-sized dive bomber. The Seiron had to fit inside a steel tube only 11 feet in diameter. To achieve this, engineers developed a forbidden folding sequence. The wings didn't just fold back, they rotated 90 degrees at the root to lie flat against the fuselage. The tail surfaces collapsed downward, and the massive floats were detachable. The technical scandal of this act focuses on the secret hot start system. In a traditional carrier launch, a plane idles on deck to warm up its engine, a luxury a submarine doesn't have. If the sub stayed on the surface for more than 15 minutes, it was a sitting duck for Allied radar. We dive into the preheated veins of the aircraft. The I-400 submarine was equipped with a system that pumped boiling oil and coolant from the sub's own engines directly into the Seiron while it was still inside the hangar. This allowed the pilot to fire up the engine and catapult into the sky at maximum thrust within seconds of hitting the daylight. The final segment of Act 1 covers the weight of the invisible. Because the Seiron was a float plane, it carried the massive aerodynamic tax of two giant pontoons. We explore the illegal trade-off. To keep the plane fast enough to outrun interceptors, the pontoons were designed to be jettisoned in an emergency. If the pilot faced combat, he could blow the bolts and drop the floats, instantly turning the bomber into a sleek, high-speed dogfighter at the cost of never being able to land back at the submarine. This act concludes with the first successful dark launch, where a Seiron was assembled, warmed, and fired into the night in total silence, proving the underwater ghost was ready for its mission to America.
This act centers on the secret mothership, the I-400 class Sensukan Toku, a submarine so massive it wouldn't be surpassed in size until the nuclear age. We dive into the illegal scale of the vessel, which was longer than a football field and carried a crew of nearly 200 men. The heart of this act is the hangar tube scandal, a giant, watertight cylinder offset from the center of the sub to balance the weight of the massive conning tower. We explain how the crew lived in cramped, forbidden conditions just to accommodate the 3 Seiron bombers resting in the belly of the beast. The technical highlight of this segment is the pneumatic catapult. Unlike the steam catapults on American carriers, the I-400 used a 26-foot-long compressed air rail. We detail the high-stakes illegal launch cycle. The submarine would surface, and the hangar door, a massive 2-ton steel hatch, would swing open. In a choreographed dance of desperation, a 20-man ground crew would pull the first plane out on a trolley. We describe the mechanical chaos of unfolding the wings and bolting the floats in total darkness, often in heavy seas, while the captain counted down the seconds until Allied radar could pinpoint their location. The final portion of Act 2 explores the stealth paradox. While the sub was designed to be invisible, the launch process was incredibly loud and visible. We look at the forbidden tactics developed to minimize this, the triple launch maneuver. The goal was to have all 3 aircraft in the air and the submarine submerged back to 100 feet in under 15 minutes. we examined the psychological pressure on the pilots who sat in their cockpits inside the hangar, feeling the submarine tilt as it surfaced, knowing that if the hangar door jammed or a wing failed to lock, they would be trapped on the surface as the sub was forced to dive without them. This act ends with the I-400 fleet slipping into the deep, heading toward the coast of California, undetected and carrying enough firepower to start a firestorm.
This finale uncovers the illegal mission that almost crippled the Allied supply chain, Operation PX. We start with the Gatun lock target. The Japanese High Command realized that the only way to stop the massive flow of American ships was to destroy the Panama Canal. We detail the suicide simulation. Pilots trained on a full-scale wooden replica of the canal locks built in the Japanese countryside, practicing low-level torpedo runs and dive-bombing maneuvers that required forbidden levels of precision. The goal wasn't just to damage the canal, but to collapse the massive steel gates, draining the lake and shutting down the Pacific Theater for years. The middle of this act focuses on the illegal camouflage scandal. As the I-400 fleet reached the staging area, the order was given to commit a war crime. The Siron bombers were painted in the silver and yellow livery of the U.S. Navy, complete with the star and bar insignia. We explore the identity theft of the aircraft. The plan was to fly into the canal zone appearing as friendly American scouts, preventing the anti-aircraft batteries from firing until it was too late. We detail the internal conflict of the pilots, who were prepared for a forbidden return. Since the submarine couldn't wait for them to land in a combat zone, the pilots were expected to ditch their planes in the water and swim toward the sub, or simply crash their aircraft into the lock gates as a final act of sacrifice. The final segment covers the Great Erasure of 1945. Just days before the strike was to launch, Japan surrendered. We describe the illegal evidence dump, where the commander of the I-400, fearful that the Americans would hang him for the fake insignia on the planes, ordered every Siron to be catapulted into the sea with the wings folded, sinking the origami bombers to the bottom of the Pacific. We conclude with the post-war shock, when the U.S. Navy finally captured the I-400 and realized they had been hunted by a submarine carrier they didn't know existed. The act ends with the U.S. sinking the captured subs off the coast of Hawaii to keep the illegal tech out of Soviet hands, leaving the Siron as a ghost of a war that almost moved underwater.